OMA is always looking for ways to add value to the industry, and one of those ways is to hold the public seminars and workshops so we can understand areas of the market that may have a need that we can fulfill. The over-the-top providers have become increasingly relevant to the smartphone user, and instead of going to the network, they now go to the application developers for applications. OMA feels like there are ways that we can enhance our network so that we can offer these over-the-top developers a more secure, a more efficient network to improve the user's experience.
So by joining OMA, especially as a startup, we were able to get involved with the whole device management community, so the ecosystem of operators and vendors involved in device management, and then really learn how we can apply our technology to that problem. So we were able to come in to the device management space and bring in the set of requirements we had from customers and partners around managing lightweight Internet of Things devices. And we could accomplish a new enabler. So together with other interested OMA members, we started and finished an enabler specification, which is now in approval at the OMA. And that took just over a year. So it was a very fast process compared to many SDOs. Yeah, the Explorer membership was a really good way to start for us because, especially as a startup or an SME, it's a big risk to go and join an alliance, put the travel and manpower resources behind it if you're not sure that you can really accomplish something. So the Explorer membership let us get our feet wet. We could come to a few meetings, start contributing, see if other people believed in what we believed in, and then go on with a full membership. So it worked perfectly for us. So OMA is organized into working groups, is where the actual technical work gets done. And the way we've actually operated is each member works towards a new work item, and the requirement document really gives the direction for the technical specification. Once that requirement document's done, the work is really about contributing pieces of that technical specification. So each member will contribute a piece, it'll be discussed, you'll combine ideas with other contributions, and eventually each contribution is approved. That gets put together by an editor into a technical specification, which eventually is finalized, comment rounds are done, and then approved.
This is OMA TV, and today we're reporting from Mobile World Congress, where the Open Mobile Alliance are holding their member demo day. Today we'll see presentations and demonstrations from some of the industry's leading vendors and operators. Attendees are going to gain an exclusive preview into up-and-coming technologies across the entire wireless value chain, some of which are not yet commercially available. Hot topics such as M2M, mobile federated social networks, rich communication services, small cell networks, future internet, augmented reality, mobile advertising and location-based services will all be discussed and demonstrated here today. All of the 13 member demos will be enabled by specifications developed by member companies within OMA and will show how these can help deploy products and services within the broadest reach and are interoperable across the networks, devices and geographic boundaries.
So, our goal here is for our service enabler APIs to allow the deployment of a wider range of device and networks functions in a way that speeds time to market and also allows you to have some confidence that your applications will respond predictably and in an interoperable way.
So what we're going to demonstrate today is a lighting solution for monitoring outdoor streetlights, and we've enabled that with the new OMA lightweight M2M enabler. And we're going to show that enabler working end-to-end with real embedded devices and virtual streetlights.
And you're actually announcing today, is that right, commercial support for this new lightweight M2M enabler?
That's right, we're extremely excited. So today we're announcing commercial support in third quarter on the nanoservice product for the lightweight M2M enabler.
We're going to be demonstrating for our solution for BYOD, our true solution for BYOD. And in this demonstration we're showing how with virtualization on a device we can have two separate Androids running side by side.
Okay, and how has the OMA enablers helped develop this software?
It's not just about having the Androids on the device, it's also enabling them to manage the Android. If an enterprise IT manager wants to roll out a BYOD solution, they have to be able to manage the enterprise Android as well. So for that, we need to be able to update it with FUMO, to lock it and unlock it with LAWMO and wipe it with LAWMO if the device gets lost. You want to add applications and remove them using SCOMO. And the overlying technology for enabling the virtualization of a BYOD device is using the up-and-coming virtualization MO, VMO.
We're using LTE to do location, and that's actually quite new. Typically you've used GSM or CDMA or Wi-Fi, and LTE is just starting to be deployed worldwide, but it has certain characteristics that makes it much better for location than any other of the other technologies that are out there.
Okay, and this technology is based upon a new OMA specification that's currently in progress. Tell us a bit more about that.
Sure. Since LTE is so new and traditionally it's been used just for voice and data, the use of it for location is very new, and as such they just started to form standard committees to do this. So we are participating in that and working with other companies to make this something that everyone can use in the future.
I think we had a great event today. We filled the room, which really pleased us. We had standing room only. The presentations were terrific. There were some announcements about products that were based on OMA enablers that I thought were really good. They were compelling demos. A lot of people here getting to show some really fascinating stuff. I mean, it's fun. I work in this business all the time. I see these enablers all the time as these little independent pieces of technology, but when they are embedded in these demos like we have today, they really come to life, and you see what the work you do actually produces for the marketplace. It's really fun.
Hello, I'm Joanne Turner for OMA TV, and today we're in Dublin reporting from the Open Mobile Alliance Big Data Seminar. Today's seminar brings together thought leaders in the area of big data and how it relates to m-commerce and mobile advertising by discussing the ecosystem and making recommendations about the potential for new standards of best practices, which help stimulate innovation, market growth and greater end-user satisfaction. The morning speakers have included a keynote presentation from Ajit Joka, founder of Future Text, who put big data into context and explained what it means to consumers, regulators and the industry's future. He was followed by Mark Little from Ovum, who looked at personal data and privacy in the mobile context, Philip Sheldrake from Euler Partners on how social data and big data are connected, and then some great examples of consumer data used from Tom Wallace of Sitwell and Francesco Calibria of IBM Research. Let's hear from some of this morning's speakers.
It was a very interesting conference. The overall theme of the conference was about standardization, big data, and what OMA could do in that space, I think. The most interesting thing I found about the conference was it fulfills a gap which is not being addressed very well so far. In that we talk about big data, we talk about the potential of mobile, but still there is not a clear kind of synergy as to how these two ideas fit together. And of course the mobile ecosystem is quite complex. It looks at the handset vendors and the operators and so on and so forth. So I think it's a complex problem being addressed under the framework of standardization, which is the most interesting thing in this conference.
What I wanted to leave the delegates with is the idea that when they are considering standards, when they're going through the standards process, they should always have in mind this incredible potential value we have for social media in the 21st century. It can literally liberate people's lives. We can allow them to contribute value in ways that they were never allowed to do in the 20th century. And if they can just have that taking up a part of their mind during the standards setting process, and say, are we helping that or hindering it? That's what I'm hoping I've left them with today.
The session after lunch saw interesting presentations from some of the leaders in the mobile code sector and how this impacts big data. This included the state of the industry in the mobile scanning by Mike Weir from ScanBuy, an interesting perspective on QR codes from Terence Eden of Telefonica, and how digital product information benefits consumers from Malcolm Bowden of GS1. I got the chance to catch up with some of the speakers after the sessions to talk through the highlights of their presentations.
Well, standards have been, I'd say, kind of barcodes is really a really good example of where standards led. So with 1D barcodes, it was standardized before it was popularized. With 2D barcodes, our company, as well as a number of others, were the ones who helped draft the first specs on how 2D barcodes were going to be resolved and dealt with. So standards have been involved since day one. I think that when we're talking about going forward for things like big data, now that we're starting to get so many scans and so much data that comes from every scan, the real questions are, how do we try and make it so that it gets to scale even faster? How do we ensure that, for example, when you scan a 1D code, that right now it's best efforts? So I tell you what I know about that product. Now, I try and be a good corporate citizen and give you really good information. But if you released with 3 of your friends, you put together a scanner this weekend and someone downloaded it, you could make that 1D scan turn back anything you want. There's no rules. So standards could really help to ensure that we got a level playing field for some of the basic factual data that people need to make a buying decision or a consumption decision about a product that they're looking at.
The thing to remember about QR codes is they store text, and lots of people just use them for storing URLs, which is fine, so you scan it and it takes you to a website. But you can do so much more. There's click to call, so you can put a phone number in there. Once you scan the code, you don't need to type in a number, you scan it, your phone starts dialing. You can do the same with text messaging as well. So you scan a code and your SMS app is already pre-populated with the phone number and the message that you need to send. We see the same for email, for mapping information, for Wi-Fi login. So rather than fiddling around typing in a huge passcode on your iPhone, you can scan a QR code and it says connect to this Wi-Fi network, use this password. And we're also now seeing them used for events and contact information. So scan my business card and you will get my contact information straight to your phone, or you will get my birthday saved straight into your calendar.
To round up an interesting day of debate, the final session was on standards and big data. Keping Lee from Huawei set the scene for a panel session which all presenters from the day took part in. The next steps for standards, best practices and recommendations were identified. I managed to talk to Gary Jones, chairman of the OMA board, at the end of the seminar to round up his thoughts on the day.
Well, clearly there's a need for collaboration between a standards development organization like the Open Mobile Alliance and the vendors and the users of big data, the people who are creating this capability. We heard some amazing presentations about the need to have user data be packaged in one place and give the user the ability to determine how that data is collected and how it's used. Create a trust environment for the operator as they have the ability to collect this data. We also heard a great presentation on the need to make the data usable. You know, data itself is nothing, but the ability to use it and pick and choose what data points you need for a particular function is very valuable, and those are the enablers that OMA can help with. So I was very pleased with it. I thought it was a great session today.
As a chair, I have to handle the horizontal activities within OMA, looking at the entire set of architecture documents within OMA enablers. Also make sure that all the security issues are looked exactly the same in each enabler. And most importantly, lately we are working on a set of Restful network APIs as per industry request, and we put it in place a Restful network governance. In this moment of time, in OMA Architecture Working Group, we are working on a couple of work items, all related to Restful Network APIs, and the work is ongoing on Restful Network APIs for quality of service, NMS, and a profile for GSMA RCS, which in OMA is called RCS Profiles 3.0. Also, I'm pleased to inform that we just finished another set of work items related to requirements coming from another organization, BAREC, and we just completed the work on API for provisioning for both Restful and SOAP bindings.
The OMA is an organization that bring to the industry new standards for bringing new services to the old stakeholder. And in particular, we in our architecture working group have a lot of experts that have been involved in several activities during these years. In particular, we have brought and make available to the industry more than 40 API, network API that are used both by the operator, but also the third party that connects to the operator. We are working on several topics right now, like some new network API, an example for the quality of services, and also for the WebRTC. So very interesting topics and needs that the industry has requested OMA to fulfill with new specification.
The benefit of OMA to the industry, if you look at it in the context of Restful Network API, as an example, something that Liliana, the chair of the group, touched upon, is that it sets the standard for application developers wishing to interface with operators' network to do it in one common way. Especially this comes into the picture when such applications or developers want to have the application developed and rolled out to communicate with different operators' network. So obviously, as an application developer, you're looking to a standards forum, in this case OMA, to provide a set of common APIs, which we refer to as Restful network APIs, in order to build against those and allow your application to communicate to any network operator, including Vodafone, Orange, AT&T, name it, whether it's European or American. So this is the benefit of OMA to the industry.
So in the communications is related to all aspects of person-to-person communications. It can be messaging, it can be real-time communications, but it also consists of different programs that supports the communication, which consists, for instance, of the address book. So we have an enabler called the Converged Address Book that deals with that. There are also some other supporting parts that deal with like group management, rules to deal with the group management, also how to deal with presence information. So anything, not only just communications, messaging, but also all parts that are useful for supporting communications and messaging, also part of the communication enabler. So communications working group, sorry. So we have a lot of work areas and working groups that deal for each and every items that is dealt by the working groups. So we started as a history. There are, for instance, MMS that, of course, that is now done. So, but there have been MMS, for instance, push-to-talk over cellular. There have been instant messaging also. More recently, also converged IP messaging that deals with the converging of different user experience of communications into one enabler. There have been, again, as I mentioned, converged address book, simplified converged address book, and other also enablers like XDM enablers present. So there are many enablers and work area enablers that have been standardized through different work areas and working groups, and we have been collaborating with many different officers, vice chairs and sub-working group chairs to produce high-quality enablers in the communication working group. In communications enabler, as I mentioned, there are different enablers. For instance, MMS, to start with, has been implemented in various mobile devices to enable the multimedia messaging service. But after that, there have been like instant messaging, simple IM, for instance, so followed by CPM and XDM, XML document management and presence, and all these enablers. How they are important to the market, because they are been especially, once you create the enablers, they are referenced by different organizations. One particular organization association is GSM Association, who created RCS as a project. So RCS stands for Rich Communication Suite, which profiles different parts of our communication group enablers, such as the simple IM, CPM, XDM presence, to create a new service suite of specifications that is suited for providing rich communication to the market. So this has been profiled, and nowadays you may have heard, like, for instance, the Join service that has been launched by some operators, mainly, for instance, in Europe. But RCS is also being considered by operators in Europe, in the US, or also in Asia, for expanding also more and more and using more and more the enablers of the communications enablers, such as, and the latest proposal, for instance, is adding the converged address book as part of the RCS latest versions. So there are still high interest and more interest from the operators to use the enablers from the communication working group to provide, to enrich against the RCS solutions for the market. currently the Communications Working Group is working on one project which is called OMA ISC, which stands for Immersive Social Center, which provides a framework to converge, to integrate the communication experience with more content viewing experience. So while you're communicating, you're watching something, people often do that now with one or multiple devices, and you want to also provide some more immersive experience you may want to provide between users, provide also including some social interaction. These kind of things are included as part of the OMA ISC enabler, and which is in progress, and we expect that it will be finalized towards the around March, April next year. All the other enablers I already mentioned are in maintenance mode. We have been now finalized, and they are so based, but these can be evolved based on the needs of the market. As I mentioned, Rich Communication Suite, there are still continuing evolution and more needs from the market, and OMA Communications Working Group is continuously aligning with the market to ensure that the products, the specifications that you're producing satisfies the needs of the market. There are also other discussions so far which has not yet been approved and not yet part yet of the plan, but there have been some discussions in OMA about, for instance, dealing how to use push-to-talk over cellular for public safety, for instance. That we can reasonably expect at some point that will be discussed in OMA, and since push-to-talk over cellular is an enabler belonging to Communications Working Group, we can expect reasonably that this is a work that we may be done in the future. Also, other items, for instance, that deals with improving the call, which is done only nowadays via the audio, but how do you integrate the call with some more visual feedbacks, visual interface, that to enrich the user experience of the call you're making with other contacts. So these are all under discussion so far. So we can expect more work in the future, and there's still a lot of work to do in the OMA Communications Working Group. So I invite all members who are interested to join us for these very exciting activities in this group. Thank you very much.